There is a wild weed in North American marshes that hits the same brain switch as Xanax, the benzodiazepine site of the GABA-A receptor, the exact target Valium and Xanax were built to reach. It gets stranger. The plant carries GABA inside its own leaf. That is the calming chemical your brain makes when you settle down at night. About 1.6 milligrams in every gram of plant. Hold it in your hand, and you are holding the calm itself. The plant is American skullcap, Schoolteacher lateriflora. Not the Chinese kind you see in supplement aisles. That is a different plant, Schoolteacher bicalensis. This one is the American native, and it has a story the other does not. It was an official drug in the United States Pharmacopoeia. Doctors prescribed it for 100 years. Then it was dropped in 1910, and almost no one alive today knows its name. And it was not removed because it failed. It was scrubbed from the books for a reason that had nothing to do with whether it worked. That reason starts long before any pharmacy existed, with the people who knew this plant first. The Cherokee were using it before any European wrote it down. They used it in women's medicine, to bring on menstruation, to ease breast pain, to help the body release the placenta after childbirth. They used it in purification ceremonies. The Iroquois brewed the root to treat smallpox. Other tribes used its cousins as kidney tonics. This knowledge was generations old before colonial America existed. When European doctors arrived, they did not discover the plant. They met people who already knew it. Dr. Lawrence van der Veer studied it closely around 1772. He used it against rabies, also called mad dog disease. That is how it earned the name mad dog skullcap. It reached the first American materia medica in 1785. It was already a home remedy long before that. A German physician recorded its use in 1787. And it never fully left the hills. In the hollows of southern Appalachia, they still call it mad dog. A grandmother kept a jar of the dried herb in the cupboard. When a child could not sleep, she steeped a spoonful in hot water. When a grown man came home, wound too tight to sit still, the same thing. And the house went quiet. No prescription, no pharmacy. Just a plant from the creek bank and knowledge passed down a porch at a time. That line never broke. It only went unwritten. By 1850, doctors had decided the plant was a failure at treating rabies. And then something strange happened. Instead of throwing it out, they reached for it more than ever. The reason is something modern science is only now beginning to explain. Because it did something else, and it did it well. It calmed people down. That became its real job. Not rabies. Nerves. The eclectic physicians built their practice on it. They were the largest botanical medical tradition this country ever produced. Not fringe healers. They ran medical schools. They published journals. They treated millions of Americans. And skullcap was their primary nervine, their first reach for nervousness, mental exhaustion, sleeplessness, and a racing, anxious heart. One of their giants was the pharmacist, John Uri Lloyd. He wrote Skullcap into King's American Dispensatory, the reference book that defined what these doctors prescribed. For a full century, this was simply medicine. Ordinary, trusted, official medicine. Then the door slammed shut. In 1910, one report ended all of it. The entire future of American medicine was handed to a man who had never practiced medicine a single day in his life. He was not hunting for the best cures. He was hunting for something else entirely. A man named Abraham Flexner wrote it. He was not a doctor. He was a schoolteacher, and he was handed the power to decide what counted as real medicine in America. The American Medical Association ordered the report. The Carnegie Foundation paid for it, and it drew one line in the sand. Real medicine happened in a laboratory. Real medicine came from a pharmacy. Everything else was quackery. Then the money moved. Rockefeller's Education Board and Carnegie's fortune poured funding into schools that taught the drug-based model. The schools that taught plants got nothing. Think about what that means. A school did not have to be bad to be destroyed. It only had to teach the wrong kind of medicine. Lose your funding, lose your accreditation, close your doors. Not because you failed your patients, because you taught the wrong cure. The numbers are not in dispute. American medical schools dropped from about 160 in 1904 to 66 by 1935. Within 30 years, every single eclectic medical school in the country was gone. Every one. The entire tradition that knew this plant, erased from formal medicine in a single generation. And skullcap followed its teachers down. It had been in the pharmacopoeia since around 1860. It was dropped in 1910, the same year as the report. It was shuffled to a secondary list in 1916, removed completely in 1942. Here is the part that should make you stop. There was no trial. No study proved skullcap dangerous. No panel ruled it useless. It was simply attached to a tradition that lost the funding war, and it went down with the ship. Now ask the obvious question. Why this model and not the other one? The answer is not a conspiracy. It is colder than that. It is arithmetic. You cannot patent a plant. Anyone can grow skullcap in a wet ditch. But a molecule built in a lab that you can own. You can patent it, price it, sell it on a schedule, forever. So the system did not pick the medicine that worked best. It picked the medicine that could be owned. A plant you grow once and harvest free is worthless to a business model built on the refill. A patented pill is a customer for life. That is the whole story. Not evil, just money choosing itself. And there is a darker footnote. Skullcap kept getting confused with a look-alike weed called germander, which carries chemicals that genuinely harm the liver. Sellers mixed them up, sloppy sourcing and careless labeling. When liver injuries showed up in the 1980s and the 1990s, the blame landed on skullcap. But the real plant did not cause that harm. The imposter did. The authentic herb has a long, clean safety record when it is correctly identified. The lab-made drugs had no such problem. Nobody was accidentally selling a poisonous look-alike as Xanax. The pill came out spotless. The plant took the stain. So the herb lost its schools, lost its place in the drug books, and lost its reputation. All at once. But the science never stopped agreeing with the plant. When researchers finally put this weed under a microscope in 2003, they did not just find a gentle natural remedy. They found a chemical mirror of the most powerful anti-anxiety drugs on the market. In 2003, researchers ran the chemistry. They found bicalin at 40 milligrams per gram in one extract. They found its active form, bicalin, at 33 milligrams per gram in another. They found GABA itself sitting in the leaf. They found glutamine at 31 milligrams per gram, and glutamine is what the body uses to build GABA. So the plant is not just calming, it carries the calm chemical and the raw material to make more. That same year, another team found skullcap's compounds lock onto the serotonin 5-HT7 receptor 2. That receptor steers mood, sleep, and the stress response. So this plant is not pulling one lever, it is pulling several at once, and they all point toward calm. Then came the cortisol finding. Cortisol is the body's main stress hormone. When it stays high, it wears down sleep, mood, and the body itself. In lab cells, a skullcap extract cut its release by as much as 91%. That is not a feeling. That is a measurable drop in a stress chemical you can read on an instrument. The human trials are small, but they are real. In 2003, healthy volunteers took skullcap and reported less anxiety. The crucial detail was what did not happen. They did not get foggy. They did not get dull. The calm came without the fade. In 2014, the gold standard test followed, Randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled, 43 volunteers. Led by a researcher named Brock, it put skullcap against a placebo. Skullcap 1. Mood lifted, sharpness held. And again, no loss of energy, no dent in thinking. That last part matters more than it sounds. Valerian, the other famous calming herb, can leave you groggy and heavy the next morning. Skullcap delivered the calm without the fog. That is the prize a nerve-in is supposed to deliver. Calmer, not knocked out. The eclectic physician said exactly that 150 years ago. The instruments are only now catching up to them. Now look at what replaced it. The pill that took skullcap's place came with a price tag that was never measured in dollars. It would take a century for the real cost of that trade to surface in the mortality data. Benzodiazepines, Valium, Xanax and their relatives became the answer to anxiety. They hit the same receptor skullcap does, but they are addictive, and getting off them is its own ordeal. Take them past a few weeks and stopping gets hard. Rebound anxiety, sleepless nights, physical misery that pulls people right back to the bottle. By 2020, these drugs were tied to roughly 12,000 overdose deaths a year. But the honest number needs its context. More than 9 in 10 of those deaths also involved opioids, most of them illegal fentanyl. The benzo-only toll is far smaller. The real damage here is not the overdose count, it is the dependence. People get hooked, and they cannot get loose. So watch what people do now. They reach for skullcap to get off benzodiazepines. The displaced herb has become the tool for escaping its own replacement. That is not my talking point. It is printed in the British Herbal Compendium, a working reference for professional herbalists. And that is the tell. While American medicine erased skullcap, Britain never did. It stayed in the British Herbal Pharmacopoeia, listed as a calming sedative. British practitioners kept prescribing it for anxiety, tension, sleeplessness, and panic the whole time. The plant did not stop working when it crossed the Atlantic. The only thing that changed was which country let you have it. The displacement is not history. It is happening right now, in real time. The plant that was pushed off the shelf is helping people climb out of the thing that pushed it. So here is what you can actually do. Start with the one rule that matters most. Verify what you are buying. Look for the Latin name on the label, Schoolteacher lateriflora. Buy from a supplier that tests for germander. That single habit removes the only real risk. The authentic plant is safe. The lookalike is the danger, and you can rule it out. Now set the costs side by side. A prescription is a recurring copay, a recurring refill, a recurring dependence. Skullcap is a seed packet and a wet corner of dirt. It returns every spring. No pharmacy, no prescription, no monthly payment. Here is how you put it back on your own shelf. Skullcap is a perennial in the mint family. Square stems, small blue helmet-shaped flowers. It grows wild across eastern North America in marshes, wet meadows, and along streams. If you have a damp, partly shaded corner of your yard, it will live there. It comes back every year on its own. Harvest in midsummer, when the plant is in full flower. Take the parts above the soil from plants at least 3 or 4 years old. Older plants carry the most active compounds. Dry the material low and slow to protect the delicate constituents. A dehydrator on its lowest setting works. So does a bundle hung in a dry, shaded spot. The cost is a seed packet. One packet plants a small bed, and skullcap reseeds itself once it takes hold. Buy seed once. Harvest for years. If you would rather buy it prepared, look for a tincture or capsule that names Schoolteacher lateriflora and shows germander testing. For a dose reference, look to Health Canada. It has approved traditional use from 1/4 gram up to 12 grams of dried herb per day. That official range covers calming nerves, easing sleep, and easing menstrual discomfort. It is a government-issued anchor you can measure against. That is not anti-medicine. That is one option being put back on the shelf after someone quietly took it off. You are the kind of person who noticed. A plant doctors trusted for a century was slipped off the official list. And instead of shrugging, you went looking for what else was taken. This was never really about one herb. It is about who gets to decide what counts as medicine, and whether that answer keeps you dependent or sets you free. The institutions of 1910 made their choice. They chose the medicine that could be owned. That choice still shapes what you are allowed to know. But the plant never changed. Schoolteacher lateriflora still grows wild in the marshes of eastern North America. It still carries GABA and the compounds that reach the same receptor as the most prescribed anxiety drugs on Earth. And it will still grow in your backyard. Subscribe to Grassling so you never miss what gets uncovered next. And share this with someone who is ready to stop depending on a system that was never built to set them free.